Welcome to this question and answer session with Bruce Thornton, independent consultant and trainer. Bruce developed the risk model several years ago with David Paul of Gwynedd Council. Bruce has introduced the risk model to authorities across Wales and England over the last 10 years. In this conversation, we focus on those opportunities for analysis and reflection, from the formality of forms to the power of reflective practice. Bruce, you describe RISC-2 and the checklist as a framework for analysis. Can you explain this?
If we ask ourselves first, what is analysis? Interestingly, analysis is built up to be this mysterious skill that no one quite knows how to do well. But we do seem to have plenty of experts who criticise other people's analysis skills. So, what is it? Analysis is about answering a specific question. Think of writing an essay at school. You have a topic to answer or consider. In order to answer it, you gather information and use this to make whatever point you need to make. It's the same in child protection. You can't analyse anything unless you know what question you're trying to answer. When we say that RISC-2 is an analysis framework, think first, what question is it addressing? Quite simply, does the evidence available indicate that there is a likelihood of significant harm? Go back to school. Think about the structure of your essay. What paragraphs do you need to include? What issues do you need to cover before bringing it to conclusion? That's what RISC-2 does. It's been designed around those paragraphs you need to cover all the points. Child's needs, parental capacity, indication of harm, categorisation, likelihood, and so on. The significant harm checklist is another example of an analysis framework. It's different to RISC-2 and delves deeper into a specific part of the issue of significance. So, it seeks to answer a slightly different question in relation to whether harm is significant or not. So, it needs a different paragraph headings. It's more detailed than RISC-2 on the elements that case law indicates the evidence of significant harm. The question is the harm significant? And if so, why? And the paragraphs we need to structure our analysis are developed from case law. You can actually develop any analysis using this approach. Start by asking, what is the question I'm trying to answer? Then, what components do I need to consider so I have everything I need to look at? Then, you bring it all together as you answer the actual question. Effective child protection answers the question, how do we know child protection is effective? Components include change, measure, and engagement through conversations. That's another example of analysis.
Bruce, these seem to be based on forms and processes. Do you think we are tied to using forms to undertake an analysis?
You don't need a form to work out what question you're trying to answer. That's about clarity and not getting distracted. But yes, I've given you examples based on things worked out in advance and then formalised into a process or forms. So let's think about this a little differently. One thing I've noticed over the years is that people who use forms such as RISC-2 or the checklist regularly develop an unconscious understanding of that analysis. So we see them looking at information and organising it without always needing the form, as if the regular use sometimes cuts a path in the brain, making it memorable and easy. Some of the best examples are in MASH, duty and intake, where the threshold decision is considered several times a day. Practitioners develop an ability without forms to structure this analysis very clearly. But when people are referring to analysis, I don't think they are always really describing analysis as answering a question. What they mean are a range of skills and attitudes that indicate that practitioners understand the subject matter deeply, or that they have considered something carefully or skillfully. So what are some of the skills that people associate with good analysis? I think two in particular are worth noting. They're both related to reflective practice. Firstly, let's call it self-reflection. That skill for you to reflect about what you're observing and experiencing. This can happen in two key ways. Looking back, You think about what you've done or experienced and think about it. You try to build a little distance to what happened. You step back and look afresh. You take a wider view. You're no longer caught up in the action itself, so you're free to try and work some things out. That's really reflecting after the event. The other one is much more complex. Reflecting now. It's reflecting while something is happening. So you're part of the doing as well as thinking, what's happening to me now? If you've ever done a counselling skills training session and been videoed, you'll look back and see your body language. So you practice being aware of your body language whilst you're talking to people. That's an example of reflecting in the moment. This self-reflection deepens your awareness of what is happening. And of course, if you're able to pause and reflect a little, you have options. You're no longer caught up in behaving automatically. You can make decisions about what you want to do. The second kind of reflective practice is one that you can do with other people. It can be as informal as those conversations with those colleagues when you're having a coffee after a visit, or more formally in supervision. These often involve you telling someone a story about what happened. You hear yourself telling it, which can be interesting in itself. They'll sometimes give an opinion. Really interesting peer or supervision reflecting is when you reframe what happened. Other people can be really helpful in helping you reframe and reinterpret events. This gives you a different interpretation of your story and what it may mean. One thing to remember about reflective practice is the more we practice it, the better we get at doing it. It should lead to a deepening of our awareness and practice. It should give us new options. I think it enhances our capacity to understand thoughtful analysis. So, I think analysis can be structured. We talked about forms and patterns predefined to get you to answer a question. But we also talked about the skills of deepening your awareness of your practice and the role of reflective practice in promoting this.
Thanks, Bruce.